If you are watching this video, it probably means that you have already come up with a logo via sketching. You've done a bunch of research and you are now ready to move to the next steps in Adobe Illustrator. So let's first talk about Typeface Choice. The typeface has to go with the logo, right? That kind of goes without saying, but a lot of people don't really understand what that means. If you go back and think about the primary drive for any design project is the concept, meaning there's an idea behind the project, and one of those things that helps drive that idea is the typeface choice. One of the best things to do when you're a beginning graphic designer, and some designers do this for their entire career, stick with classic typefaces. And you've probably seen me do this before, but just real quick, I'll mention it and show you one more time. You go to Amazon, you go to books, you bring up typographic specimens, go to the actual book, typographic specimens, great typefaces, and then click on the book, look at the table of contents in the book with this look inside feature. You may have to click on more than one of the initial showings of the book, but then eventually you will end up inside this look inside, and you will go to the table of contents and you will see that there are 28 fonts listed. Find some of those that are on your machine as a starting point. Now, you also have to think about, does the restaurant have an old school feel to it? So maybe a font with serifs on it. Does it have more of a traditional new look? Then probably a sans serif font. Just because a font is in here doesn't mean that it's the right choice for your restaurant. Sometimes students, because they just find it, or it starts with A and it's quickly found, will pick American Typewriter. But just as the name implies, it is a derivative of a typewriter font. So does your restaurant serve delicious typewriters? Then it might not be a good choice for the restaurant. And don't let your audience, when you're a professional designer, search for meaning where there is none just because you think that a font is cool. And another way to say that is, don't let us, your classmates, your instructor, and when you're looking for a job and people are looking through your portfolio and they're looking at your logos, they're going to probably ask you questions about them. And if they say, why this typeface, you should have a good answer prepared. A lot of times what students will do is just think, oh, I don't want to use one of those boring old typefaces, and then they'll pick something that looks cool. And a lot of the times the choice is a distressed typeface. Does a distressed look have anything to do with your restaurant? If the answer is no, it's the wrong typeface. Remember now, always as a designer, you kern whenever it's important. So obviously the type that goes along with a logo is ultra important. Now, I'm not going to show everything that I'm talking about on here, especially things that are in other videos, but I will just kind of quickly run through a couple past resources with you, maybe just as a reminder of where to find them. So the obvious choice would be to go to instructional videos, go to GD 140, and just kind of work backwards through the projects that we have done. So under Word Power, that's where you'll find a separate video on kerning. And if there's just one aspect of kerning that you forgot, maybe it's answered there. If you were too busy when you did the other project to actually do some practice kerning, go back and do it. You want to get everything that you can out of this class. Other things that we've covered in the past, and they're also going to be under this same menu, is ways of using the Pathfinder tool to chop things up. It goes all the way to the full bleed project where I talk about how to clean up the artboard. So a lot of this stuff that you've learned already, you can apply now using critical thinking like we talked about. You learned it once. Now when you think about how do I chop a part of this little drawing that I made off this vector drawing, remember this stuff from the past and apply it. There could also be things from the 2D on 3D, actually that should be 3D on 2D, better fix the menu, that might apply. And then remember, the other place where there are videos is under software help in Illustrator. That's where you find things more broad category based. So here again is one just on the Pathfinder tool, just on masking, bleeds and crop marks, and so on. The thing that's often difficult when you first design logos is how do you get the typeface to integrate, to look just right with the logo. Let me just show you a couple tips and tricks on that. Let's just look at a pretend logo for a pretend company. Hopefully you can just intuitively feel that if that were the name of the company, is way too small. You don't want the logo to feel like it's crushing the name of the company. You don't want them to kind of feel equal so that there's a hierarchy strike. And typically making, the name of the company big is not the hierarchy that you want, because this is your brand. This is that little mark that you want people to recognize. How do you strike that right balance? Well, one of the best things you can do is try and just keep trying. And I am a huge fan of just, rather than say, okay, that doesn't work, let's see what else I can try, just say that doesn't work, but let me compare it. Whoops, I meant to do just a option drag there, release the mouse, then release the modifier key, and then that way you can compare back to this one. Now, obviously, the other thing that's wrong here is we've got a tangent with the logo and the M. One trick that can help you get there a little bit quicker, maybe, is to think of like a pyramid of the logo supporting or being supported by the type. Kind of put the bulk of your logo inside of a pyramid, and then you say, okay, I'm going to get my text to appear down here so that they have that kind of a support relationship. Maybe something like that. And again, keeping hierarchy in mind. Is the logo still overpowering? And or I mean, actually, the logo should be, number one, hierarchical. But actually, in my view right now, there's still too much competition, and I think it's because this is a muted color and this is a bolder color against that white background. That helped quite a bit, and maybe even making this a little bit, if you went with a brighter color for that and then stayed with just black for here, making it just a little bit smaller, but again, keeping that look like it's supporting, like it's a base for the logo, rather than what we started out with, where it looked like the logo was going to crush the font. And then you can't just pick this and center them, because as you remember, this is a very defined edge. This is a much softer edge. So you really just have to keep playing around with it until it looks just right. And if it's for print-based work, that means printing it out and looking at it printed. Sometimes the automatic space between just the one click between words is too big for the text in a font, and then if that's the case, you'd want to put the cursor in there and adjust the kerning. Go out and look at popular examples. Not that every popular example is a great example, but most of the ones that have stood the test of time are pretty safe to use. You see Toyota has that kind of pyramid look to it. Target, to a little bit lesser extent, but then Target, the typeface is a little bit tighter, and they probably figured if they got it too big, both being the same color, they would have that hierarchical struggle. And of course, this isn't the only place that you could put the text. It could certainly go next to the mark. It's really just what makes the most sense visually. A lot of times, if there's something pointing towards the text, that can be a powerful thing. So since this part of the logo is down low and it kind of looks like it's leading, maybe you could do that, because it's just kind of feels natural. It points to the type. Do try a lot of experimentation. Get the logo and the text for the logo just right. And then in the next video, we will take off with, assuming you have the logo right and you want to make the presentation of the logo.